The first thing she felt was a cold. Not the kind that comes from winter air, but the kind that comes from being looked through like you don't exist. The kind that lives in rich houses behind tall gates, where silence has a price tag. The mansion doors opened with a slow, heavy groan, and every eye that mattered barely lifted. Like even noticing her was too much work. The marble floors shined so bright they looked like water. Lights hung from the ceiling like frozen stars. Everything smelled like money, polished wood, expensive perfume, fresh flowers that probably cost more than a month of someone's rent. The place was perfect, too perfect, like nothing bad was allowed to happen here. Like pain couldn't breathe in these rooms. But pain was exactly what stepped inside. She wore a plain gray uniform. No jewelry, no makeup, hair pulled back tight, a broom in her right hand like it was part of her body. She kept her head slightly down, not because she was weak, but because she knew the rules in a house like this. Look up too long, and they call it disrespect. Speak too much, and they call it attitude. Stand still for 1 second, and they call it lazy. This was not a home. It was a kingdom, and she was walking in as someone meant to stay invisible. A man in a suit barely glanced at her paperwork. His fingers moved fast, bored. "You're the new cleaning lady," he said, like he was saying new mop. Then he pointed down the hall without even looking up. "Kitchen's that way. Storage room is around the corner. Don't wander." "Yes, sir," she said softly, her voice calm on the outside, even though her chest felt tight like someone had wrapped a rope around it. She could hear laughter somewhere in the house, the kind of laugh people make when they've never had to worry about what tomorrow costs. Her shoes made a small sound on the marble, and she hated that sound. It felt too loud, like the house was warning her that she didn't belong. She took one step, then another, slow, measured, like if she moved too fast, she might break apart. Because the truth was, she wasn't here for money. She wasn't here because she needed a job. She wasn't here because she couldn't do better. She was here because there was only one place in the world where she could see him. And then she saw the grand staircase. It rose like a monument, wide and curved, with a gold railing that caught the light. At the bottom of it, sitting on a plush rug, was a little boy, maybe 5 or 6. Clean white shirt, tiny sneakers that looked brand new, a toy car in his hand, rolling across the rug like the world was simple and safe. His laughter jumped up into the air and bounced off the walls. Her body stopped before her mind did. The broom slipped slightly in her hand. Her fingers tightened again. She forgot to breathe for a second. The sound in the room faded, like someone turned the world down. All she could see was his face, his cheeks, his eyes, the way he tilted his head when he focused, the way his mouth formed a small smile like he was holding a secret. That boy was her son. And in that moment, the mansion got smaller. The ceiling got heavier. The air got sharper. Her heart slammed against her ribs like it was trying to break out and run to him. Her knees went weak, but she locked them, forcing herself to stand. Because she couldn't fall here. Not here. Not in front of these people. Months. It had been months since she'd seen him up close like that. Months since she'd heard his laugh without a screen in between. Months since she'd watched him play, without someone telling her time was up. Months since life had taken him and placed him in a world she wasn't allowed to touch. People always think money makes you untouchable. Like if you're a wealthy woman, nothing can hurt you. Like you can buy your way out of pain. But some pain doesn't have a price. Some pain doesn't care what car you drive or what your name is on paper. Some pain walks into your life, grabs what you love most, and dares you to breathe again. She had tried everything. Lawyers, meetings, promises, tears behind closed doors where no one could see. But the world had decided she was too busy, too focused on her career, not stable enough. They said her life was too public, too intense, too much. And then, with cold hands and clean words, they took her son and placed him under the care of someone else. Someone connected, someone respected, someone who could smile in court and say all the right things. And now here he was, in this mansion, in someone else's arms, in someone else's life. Her throat burned. She forced her eyes to blink slowly, because if she blinked too fast, the tears would fall. And if the tears fell, she wouldn't be able to stop them. She lowered her gaze to the floor for half a second, pretending to check something, pretending she wasn't staring at the one person in the world she'd die for. She moved again, one step at a time. The broom dragged softly across the floor, and she hated that too. She hated that she was holding a broom when she should be holding his hand. She hated that she had to pretend she was nobody just to be near him. She hated that she was living inside a lie made by people who didn't understand love. But she kept walking, because love was stronger than pride. A woman's voice cut through the air like a slap. "Hey, what are you doing just standing there?" The caretaker appeared, a sharp-faced woman with perfect hair and a tight smile. She looked the cleaning lady up and down like she was dirt on the rug. "This isn't a museum. You're here to work. Clean." The little boy looked up, curious. His eyes landed on the woman with the broom. For a second, his face changed, like he felt something he couldn't name. Children feel things adults ignore. They feel the truth in a room before anyone speaks. The cleaning lady's chest tightened again. She wanted to drop the broom. She wanted to run to him. She wanted to say his name, the way she used to whisper at night when she couldn't sleep. But the caretaker stepped in front of the boy, like a wall, like a gate. "Come on," the caretaker said quickly, scooping him up. "We don't bother to help. Say bye." The boy raised his hand slowly, not sure why. His fingers opened and closed in a small wave. His eyes stayed on her face, searching, confused, almost like he recognized something he couldn't reach. The woman with the broom swallowed hard. She forced a small nod, pretending she was fine, pretending she didn't feel her heart splitting. The caretaker turned away, already distracted, carrying him toward another room, toward another life. And just like that, the space between them became a mile again. The cleaning lady stood there for a beat too long, and the caretaker's voice snapped back without turning around. "You heard me. Clean." Those words hit like shame, like a reminder, like a warning. And she did what she came to do. She bent down. She placed the broom to the floor. She began to sweep. The bristles whispered across the marble, back and forth, back and forth. A simple motion, a humiliating one, only because of what it cost her to do it. Her eyes followed the path where the boy disappeared, and her vision blurred. She blinked the tears back, but one escaped anyway, sliding down her cheek without permission. She kept sweeping as if nothing happened. Because in a mansion like this, emotion is seen as weakness. But inside her it was chaos. Inside her it was screaming. Inside her, it was a mother trying to survive the sound of her child's laughter fading into another room. She didn't come here for comfort. She didn't come here for respect. She didn't come here to be seen. She came here for a glimpse, for proof he was okay, for the chance to breathe the same air as him, even if only from far away. She would take crumbs if that's all the world allowed her. The staff passed by her like she was furniture. Someone laughed near the kitchen. Someone argued softly about wine. Someone's phone rang with a ringtone that sounded too cheerful for the heaviness in her chest. And still, she swept, because this wasn't just a job. This was a sacrifice. And while everyone in that mansion thought they were watching a quiet cleaning lady do her work, they had no idea they were standing near a storm. They had no idea that the woman they ignored had once walked through rooms like these with power in her name and leaders at her table. They had no idea that the broom in her hand was not a sign of who she was, but a symbol of what she was willing to become. She swept until her arms ached, until her back tightened, until the tears stopped falling, because her body ran out of room for them. And even then, she kept going, because she knew one thing with painful clarity. This house was hiding something. And soon, the truth was going to be revealed in a way that would leave every person in that mansion staring in silence, wondering how they could have been so blind. Days passed like slow footsteps in a hallway. No one cared to light. The mansion stayed the same. Perfect, cold, quiet. The marble still shined. The chandeliers still glowed. The rich still laughed as if the world had never broken anyone's heart. And every morning, the woman returned with her broom, her uniform, and her silence. She became part of the background, like a shadow, like furniture, like something people only noticed when it was in the way. The staff spoke to her with sharp voices and tired eyes, not because she had done anything wrong, but because power always needs someone beneath it, someone to remind them they're above. Cleaning lady, hurry up. Don't stand there. Stay out of family space. Each word landed like a slap across her face. She never argued, never raised her voice. She just nodded and kept sweeping, back and forth, like the sound of the broom could cover the sound of her heart breaking, because she wasn't here for them. She was here for him. Every day, she saw her son, even if only for seconds. Sometimes he was playing near the stairs. Sometimes he was eating breakfast at the long dining table, feet swinging, because a chair was too big for his small body. Sometimes he was being led outside by the caretaker, dressed in clothes that looked too expensive for someone so young. He looked healthy, safe, and that was both a comfort and a torture. He didn't recognize her. How could he? The woman, he remembered, wore soft dresses, smelled like warm perfume, held him close at night, and whispered stories into his hair. The woman standing here now wore gray, smelled like cleaning soap, kept her eyes down like she had no right to look up. She had become someone else, someone broken, someone invisible, and that was the hardest part. Not the sweeping, not the humiliation, the invisibility. One morning, she passed by a mirror in the hallway and barely recognized herself. Her face looked tired. Her eyes looked older. Her shoulders were tense like they were holding the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. She stared for a moment, then quickly looked away, as if even her reflection was judging her. She moved through the house quietly, cleaning rooms filled with things that didn't matter. Gold frames, silk curtains, paintings that cost more than school. None of it mattered, because the only thing that mattered was the little boy laughing somewhere down the hall. Sometimes, she caught herself staring too long, and every time she did, someone reminded her, don't look at him. Stop standing there. You're here to work. As if love was something servants weren't allowed to feel, as if a broom erased the heart inside her chest. One afternoon, the mansion was louder than usual. Guests had come and gone. The caretaker was distracted, speaking on her phone, walking quickly through the main room. The boy was playing alone near the staircase again, rolling his toy car across the floor. The woman swept nearby, careful, quiet. The boy pushed the car too hard. It rolled away, right toward her feet. It stopped near the edge of her broom, like it had chosen her. The woman froze. Her breath caught. Slowly, she bent down, her knees trembling. Her fingers reached for the small toy, but she held it for a moment like it was something sacred, like touching something he'd touched was the closest she could come. Her voice came out before she could stop it. Soft, gentle. You like cars, she whispered. The boy looked up. His eyes met hers. And in that moment, time slowed. His face was innocent, curious, open. He tilted his head slightly, studying her the way children study the world when they don't yet know what lies adults carry. Do you work here? He asked. The question was simple, but it cut deep. Do you work here? Not, are you my mother? Not, why do you look sad? Just, do you belong here? The woman's lips parted. Her heart pounded so loud, she thought the whole room could hear it. She wanted to say his name. She wanted to tell him everything. She wanted to pull him close and breathe him in like air. But before she could answer, a voice snapped like thunder. Hey! The caretaker rushed forward, eyes sharp, face angry. What are you doing talking to him? The woman stood slowly, holding the toy car with shaking hands. He dropped it, she said quietly. The caretaker snatched the car from her, like it was dangerous. You don't speak to him. You're just a help. Do you understand? The boy's eyes widened. He looked from the caretaker back to the cleaning lady, confused, almost hurt, but the caretaker grabbed his arm. Come on, we don't waste time with strangers. The boy was pulled away, his small feet sliding slightly across the floor. He looked back once, just once, and the woman felt something tear inside her. Then he was gone again. The room fell silent. The woman stood there frozen, broom beside her, humiliation burning through her chest like fire. Just a help, just a cleaning lady, just nothing. She swallowed hard. forcing herself not to cry in front of them. Not here. Not where they could turn her pain into gossip. She went back to sweeping, but her hands weren't steady anymore. That night, when the mansion finally quieted, when the rich went asleep in their soft beds, when the lights dimmed and the staff disappeared into their own corners, the woman slipped into the storage room. It was small, cold, smelled like bleach and dust. She sat on the floor, back against the wall, and for the first time all day, she let herself breathe. Her shoulders shook. Her tears came fast. Silent. Heavy. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something folded carefully, like a piece of her soul. A photograph. Old, slightly worn. It showed her standing tall in a black gown, diamond around her neck, her hair done perfectly. Cameras flashed around her, and beside her, smiling wide, was her son, younger, holding her hand like she was a whole world. She stared at it for a long time. Her fingers traced his face. "I was there," she whispered through tears. "I was your mother. I still am." She wasn't always this. She wasn't always powerless. Once, people stood when she entered a room. Once, her name was spoken with respect. Once, she had control. But something cruel had happened. Something that didn't care about her wealth or her strength. Life had taken her son. And this mansion, this life, had stolen the one thing money could never replace. Her child. The next day, she returned again. Because what else could she do? She swept the halls like always. Quiet. Invisible. Until the worst moment came. It happened in the late afternoon. The boy was laughing in the main room, and the woman stood near the doorway, watching for just a second too long. She didn't realize someone had noticed. The owner of the house entered. A rich man with a cold face and eyes that had never had to beg for anything. His suit was perfect. His presence filled the room like a warning. He saw her staring. His expression darkened. He walked toward her slowly, each step heavy with arrogance. The staff went silent. Even the caretaker stiffened. The man stopped close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. He looked her up and down like she was something stuck to his shoe. Then he spoke, voice low and sharp. "Cleaning ladies don't get attached," he said. The woman's stomach dropped. He leaned closer. "Remember your place." The words hung in the air like poison. The woman's face went pale. Her fingers tightened around the broom, so hard her knuckles turned white. Because in that moment, something inside her shifted. He had no idea. He was speaking to someone who once ruled a world far greater than his. He was speaking to a woman who had lost everything except her truth, and the truth was about to explode. The mansion was quiet, but the storm was coming, and no one was ready for what she was about to reveal. It happened on a night when the mansion looked more like a palace than a home. The kind of night where rich people dressed in silk and diamonds, laughing as if the world outside those gates didn't exist. The kind of night where the air smelled like expensive wine and polished gold. A grand dinner party had arrived, and with it came powerful guests, sharp smiles, and voices filled with pride. Cars lined a long driveway, like a parade of wealth. Men in suits stepped out with watches that sparkled under the lights. Women walked in heels that clicked like crowns on marble floors. Every corner of the house seemed to glow brighter, as if money itself was lighting the walls. Crystal glasses clinked. Laughter echoed. Conversations floated to the air about business deals, private jets, and vacations that sounded like dreams to ordinary people. And through all of it, the cleaning lady moved like a ghost. She wore the same plain gray uniform, her broom in her hand, her eyes lowered, her body careful, quiet, trained to stay invisible. No one greeted her. No one asked her name. She was simply part of the background, like the chandeliers or the curtains. But her heart was not in the party. Her heart was upstairs, where her son was supposed to be asleep. She had been told not to go near him tonight. The caretaker made sure of it. Stay in the kitchen. Stay out of sight. The caretaker had warned earlier, voice cold. Tonight is important. Important. Everything was important to these people. Except love. The woman nodded as always. Silent. Obedient. But inside, she felt something heavy. Because she knew nights like this could change everything. The rich man of the house stood near the center of the room, holding court like a king. His voice was loud. His smile was sharp. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Guests leaned in, laughing at his jokes. The caretaker stayed close, proud, protective, and the cleaning lady stayed far away, sweeping, wiping, blending into the walls, until the sound came. Small footsteps, fast, unexpected, a child's voice. The woman's head lifted before she could stop herself, and then she saw him, the little boy, her son. He had slipped away from upstairs, curious, drawn by the noise and lights. He ran into the room like a spark, barefoot, eyes wide with wonder. "Mama?" he called out softly, not sure who he was even looking for. The caretaker turned sharply. "Get back upstairs," she hissed, rushing forward. But the boy didn't listen. He moved through the crowd, weaving between expensive dresses and polished shoes. Guests chuckled, amused. "Aren't children adorable?" someone whispered. But the cleaning lady wasn't smiling. Her breath caught. Her heart screamed. Because children don't run toward strangers. Children run toward something they feel, toward something familiar. The boy's eyes landed on her, and suddenly his little face lit up, like he had found something he didn't know he was missing. He ran faster, straight toward her. The caretaker shouted his name, but it was too late. The boy's foot caught on the edge of a rug. His body pitched forward. Time slowed. The room gasped. The child fell hard onto the marble floor. The sound was sharp, painful. Silence exploded for half a second. Then chaos followed. "Oh my God!" "Someone help him." The caretaker screamed, voice breaking in panic. "Doctors! We're the doctors!" Guests froze, wine glasses hovering midair. Some stepped back, afraid to be involved. Others whispered urgently. Blood wasn't visible, but fear was. The boy cried out, struggling to breathe, his small chest rising too fast, too uneven. Panic rose like smoke. The caretaker knelt beside him, shaking. "I don't know what to do." The rich man barked. "Call someone? Now!" But the doctors weren't close. The staff stood helpless. And for one moment, all the wealth in that room meant nothing, because money cannot stop a child from suffering. Then the cleaning lady moved. She didn't think. She didn't ask permission. She dropped the broom. It clattered against the floor, loud enough to cut through the noise. And she rushed forward. Guests stared, shocked at the help, would step into the center of the room. But she didn't care. She fell to her knees beside the boy, her hands gentle but firm. Her voice changed. No longer quiet. No longer invisible. "Everyone stay back," she commanded. The room froze. The caretaker blinked at her. "What are you doing?" The woman ignored her. She lifted the boy carefully, supporting his neck, her movements calm, precise, like she had done this before. "Breathe, baby," she whispered. "Breathe." The boy's crying turned into choking gasps. His chest trembled. The woman placed 2 fingers gently under his chin, tilting his head just enough. "Airway," she murmured. Then she performed a technique, controlled, practiced, something no ordinary cleaning lady should know. She pressed softly, guiding his breathing. Her eyes locked on his face. Her entire world narrowed down to that one small life. The boy's sobs slowed. His breathing steadied. His chest rose, then fell, then rose again. A deep breath, a calm breath. The crying stopped. Silence fell over the room like a curtain. The guests stared. The caretaker's mouth hung open. The rich man's face hardened, confusion and suspicion mixing in his eyes. He stepped forward slowly, where he asked, voice sharp, "Did you learn that?" The cleaning lady didn't answer right away. Her hands were still shaking. She looked down at the boy, brushing his hair back instinctively. And then the boy looked up at her, his eyes filled with something deeper than curiosity, something older than memory. His lips trembled, and in a voice barely louder than a whisper, he said, "Mama?" The word hit the room like lightning. The caretaker went pale. The guests froze completely. The rich man's eyes widened. "What?" he demanded, stepping closer. "Did he just call you?" The woman's breath broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Her face twisted with love and pain. She didn't want this moment like this. Not in front of them. Not like a scandal. But truth has its own timing. Slowly, she reached into her pocket. The caretaker shook her head. No, no, don't. But the woman pulled something out. An ID card. The rich man squinted. The guests leaned in. And then the room erupted in gasps. Because it wasn't a maid's badge. It wasn't a staff card. It was a business identity. A name that carried weight. A face that had been on magazines, television, billboards. A billionaire businesswoman. One of the most powerful women in the country. She's her, someone whispered. Another guest stumbled back. That can't be possible. The rich man's mouth opened, but no words came out. His face drained of color. He took a step backward, like the floor beneath him had shifted. Speechless. The caretaker looked like she might collapse. The cleaning lady stood slowly, tears still falling, her uniform suddenly looking like a costume instead of a truth. Her voice rose, shaking like thunder. I didn't come here to clean your floors, she said. The room held its breath. I didn't come here for your money or your approval. She looked down at the boy, her son, still holding on to her sleeve. I came here, she whispered, voice breaking, to see my child. Silence. Heavy. Unbearable. The rich man stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. All the power he thought he had, all the control, gone. Because the woman he had humiliated, the woman he called just a help, was never beneath him. She had only been beneath her love. And in that moment, the truth was revealed. The room would never be the same again. The mansion would never feel so untouchable again, because the power had shifted. And what came next would shatter everything they thought they knew. The mansion was no longer loud. No more laughter. No more clinking glasses. No more proud voices filling the air like they owned the world. Everything had stopped. It was quiet now. Heavy. Ashamed. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful, but painful. The kind of silence that forces people to face what they've done. The guests stood frozen, staring at the woman in the gray uniform as if she had suddenly become something impossible. Their eyes moved from her tear-stained face to the ID card in her hand, to the little boy gripping her sleeve like he had finally found his truth. The rich man, the owner of the house, stood as still as stone. His mouth was slightly open, but no sound came out. Moments ago, he had been powerful. Moments ago, he had been untouchable. Moment ago, he had looked down at her and told her to remember her place. Now, he didn't know where his own place was, because the woman he had humiliated, the woman he had treated like dust, was not just a cleaning lady. She was a billionaire, one of the most powerful women in the country, and yet she had never acted like it. Not once. She had taken every insult, every cold stare, every cruel word, and she never fought back with money or status. Because she didn't come here as a billionaire. She came here as a mother. The caretaker's knees buckled. Her face turned ghost white. She stumbled forward, shaking her head, voice cracking. I didn't know, she stammered, tears forming in her eyes. I didn't know it was you. Her hands trembled as if she wanted to grab the air and rewind time. But time doesn't rewind. Pain doesn't erase. The woman looked at her calmly, though her own tears still fell. Then she raised her hand, not in anger, not in violence, just in quiet control. It doesn't matter what you knew, she said softly. Her voice was gentle, but it carried weight. The room leaned into it. It matters what you did. Those words landed harder than any scream, because they were true. The caretaker opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. What excuse could cover months of cruelty? What apology could undo humiliation? The woman turned away from her. She looked down at the little boy, her son, still on the floor, still shaken, still holding on to her like she was the only safe thing left in the world. Slowly, she knelt. Her hands cupped his face the way they used to, the way they were meant to. I'm here, she whispered, voice breaking. I'm right here. The boy's eyes filled with tears. He didn't fully understand the world. He didn't understand courts or caretakers or titles, but he understood her. He understood the warmth in her voice, the love in her touch, and with a trembling breath, he leaned forward. Then he wrapped his small arms around her neck, tight, like home, like he had been waiting for this, without knowing it. The room watched. Grown men and women who had everything, watching a child hug the one thing money could never replace. Love. The rich man swallowed hard. His throat moved like he was choking on regret. His voice, when it finally came, was no longer arrogant. It was cracked, broken. Why? He whispered, stepping forward slowly. Why would someone like you lower yourself like this? His eyes were wide, not with anger, with confusion, with shame. You're a billionaire, he said. You could have walked in here with lawyers, with police, with power. You could have destroyed us. His voice trembled, but instead, he looked at the broom on the floor. The uniform, the tears. You swept floors. The woman stood slowly, her son still holding her hand now. She faced him. Her eyes were steady, strong, not because she was rich, but because she was human. Because love has no pride, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it echoed through every corner of the mansion. A mother will sweep 1,000 floors. She looked down at her son, brushing his hair back, just to see her child smile. Something in the rich man's face changed. It wasn't instant. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, like ice melting, like a wall cracking. He had lived his life believing power was everything. That money made you important. That servants were servants because they belonged beneath him. But in that moment, he saw the truth. The greatest power in the room was not his wealth. It was her sacrifice. His eyes dropped, his shoulders lowered, and for the first time, he looked small. I treated you like nothing, he said, voice barely audible. The woman didn't respond with anger. She didn't respond with revenge. She just held her son closer, because she hadn't come for revenge. She had come for love. The guest began to whisper, but not with gossip now, with shame, with awe. One woman dabbed her eyes. One man looked down at his expensive shoes, as if they suddenly felt meaningless. The caretaker sobbed quietly, realizing she had spent months guarding a child from the very person who would die for him. The rich man's lips trembled. I thought, he said, struggling, I thought people like you didn't feel pain the way we do. The woman's gaze sharpened. That's where you were wrong, she said. Wealth doesn't erase tears. It doesn't stop loneliness. And it doesn't replace a child's arms around his mother. The mansion felt different now. Smaller, colder, like the walls themselves were listening. The rich man took a slow breath. I was blind, he admitted. His voice was filled with something unfamiliar. Humility. I judged you by your uniform. The woman nodded once. Yes. And that's what the world keeps doing, she whispered. Every day. The rich man looked at the broom again, then at her, then at the boy, and something inside him finally broke. Not in weakness, in awakening. That night, the man changed. Not because he was exposed, not because he was embarrassed, but because he finally saw what wealth could never buy. He saw dignity in the underdog. He saw humanity beyond uniforms. He saw that the people we ignore are often carrying stories we could never survive. The woman took a deep breath. She didn't want this mansion. She didn't want their pity. She only wanted her son. She squeezed his hand gently. Come, she whispered. The boy nodded, and together they began to walk. Through the crowd, past the crystal glasses, past the expensive suits, past the caretaker still crying on the floor. The guests parted like the sea. No one stopped her. No one dared, because she wasn't walking as a cleaning lady anymore. She was walking as the truth. At the doorway, she paused, not for them, but for herself. She turned back one last time. Her eyes met the rich man's, and she spoke softly. Never judge someone by the role they are forced to play. Her voice was steady, because the heart inside them may be priceless. Then she walked out, holding her son's hand, and for the first time in months, she wasn't sweeping floors. She was walking toward freedom. The mansion behind her felt smaller than ever, not because it lost its wealth, but because it finally lost its pride. And the people inside stood in silence, tears in their eyes, realizing a universal truth. Respect costs nothing, but a lack of it can cost everything.